Germany, the country that built its reputation on engineering, efficiency, and order, is now staring down an energy crisis so deep it could undo decades of progress. Energy bills have doubled, industries are shutting down, and the same politicians who promised green stability are now scrambling to keep the lights on. But here's the twist. This isn't just about Germany. What's happening here could decide the fate of Europe's economy and yours. Not long ago, Germany was the poster child of climate virtue, the green giant marching proudly toward a carbon-free future. €500 billion spent, wind turbines lining the horizon, solar panels glittering like promises, and now, lignite, the dirtiest coal on Earth, burning brighter than ever. It's not just irony. It's failure wrapped in delusion. Because when a nation this wealthy, this organized, this prepared, ends up right back in the fossil-fueled pit it tried to escape, what hope does anyone else really have? They called it the Energiewende, the energy turnaround, beat. But the only thing that really turned was the narrative, from leader to cautionary tale, from innovation to improvisation, from hope to headlines that read like obituaries for the dream of clean progress. And yet, we keep pretending that throwing more money at a broken system will suddenly make it whole, pretending that policies built on wishful thinking won't collapse under real-world pressure. So before you click away, ask yourself this. If Germany couldn't pull it off with all its resources, what exactly are the rest of us supposed to do? Think about that. Then hit subscribe, because this isn't the last green dream to unravel, and the next one might be yours. In 2011, Germany made a decision, not based on science, not based on geography, but based on fear. Fukushima happened. In Japan, a country sitting on a tectonic powder keg. Germany? No tsunamis, no earthquakes. But it pulled the plug on all nuclear anyway, because feelings. They dismantled reactors that had been quietly producing low-emission power for decades. Clean, efficient, consistent, gone. All in the name of public sentiment and political optics. And what filled the gap? Not innovation, not solar miracles, coal, lignite, literal prehistoric sludge, brought back like some apocalyptic comeback tour. This wasn't just a pivot, it was an emotional overcorrection disguised as policy. A nation so desperate to be righteous, it ended up being reckless. Nuclear was the scapegoat, climate was the victim, and the carbon bill? Still rising. So now Germany preaches climate goals while propping up coal plants. Talks of leadership while importing nuclear-powered electricity from France. You can't script hypocrisy better than this. And maybe that's the real tragedy here. When good intentions are led by bad reasoning, we don't just lose time, we lose credibility. If that doesn't make you question what else we're getting wrong, you're not paying attention. Stick around, because the next decision aging badly could be the one you're cheering for today. Germany bet big on the sun and the wind. Thousands of turbines, fields of solar panels, stretching for miles. A shining testament to a cleaner future. But here's the part they don't put on postcards. When the skies go gray and the wind dies down, the entire grid starts sweating bullets. Because you can't power a country on vibes and weather forecasts. The truth? For all the billions poured into renewables, Germany still can't guarantee energy when it's needed most. The backup plan? Coal. Again. The same coal everyone thought they were burying. Now resurrected because the green future forgot to include a stable baseload. This isn't just a technical glitch. It's a structural delusion, one where political theater replaced engineering and hope tried to replace physics. And it gets worse. The more renewables you build without storage or stability, the more fragile your system becomes. More volatility, more blackouts, more last-minute bailouts from neighbors running nuclear. So yes, Germany looks green. Until you zoom out. Until you realize €500 billion later, they still can't keep the lights on without burning yesterday. It's not just a mirage, it's a warning. And if you think your country's plan is different, beat. You might want to read the fine print. And here's where it gets almost poetic. In a dark, laugh-through-the-pain kind of way. When Germany's wind stalls and the solar panels go to sleep under a blanket of clouds, guess who keeps the grid alive? Never flinched on nuclear. That kept its reactors humming while Germany was busy tearing theirs down. Now, when the lights flicker in Berlin, it's Paris that steps in with a quiet "you're welcome," powered by the very technology Germany declared too dangerous for its own people. Nuclear power, bad for Germans. Perfectly fine, if it's imported. This isn't just irony, it's strategic amnesia. A country that wanted to lead the world in clean energy now leans on a neighbor's decisions they once mocked. Publicly anti-nuclear, privately dependent. It's the geopolitical equivalent of deleting your GPS app and then constantly asking your friend for directions. And yet, the illusion holds. The speeches continue. The awards pile up. But behind the scenes, Germany's energy security is on life support, plugged into a French socket. Makes you wonder, in the race to be morally right, did Germany forget how to be logically smart? Think about that. Then ask yourself, who's really powering the green revolution? So after all the speeches, the solar dreams, the moral high ground, guess what's heating German homes this winter? Lignite. The dirtiest, most carbon-choking fuel on Earth, dug straight from the ground, shoveled into reactivated coal plants like it's 1952. Germany, the country that promised to lead us into a green utopia, is now emitting more than before. This isn't a detour, it's a collapse. Emissions are up, coal dependency is back, and yet the spin machine rolls on. Politicians call it temporary. Energy ministers say it's transitional. But the coal trains don't lie, and neither does the air. The country that told the world, we can do better, is now doing worse, by its own metrics. All while blaming external shocks, market pressures, global instability, anything but the mirror. Because acknowledging failure, that would require humility, and maybe even accountability. Instead, they hand out more subsidies, announce more targets, hold more conferences. But beneath the buzzwords, the reality is black, literally. So here's the truth. Germany didn't just fall short of its green goals, it lit them on fire and shoveled in more lignite to keep the flames going. Still think the energy revolution is in safe hands? While politicians pose in front of wind farms and billionaires brag about their solar rooftops and Tesla walls, there's another Germany most don't see. The one where pensioners skip heating in winter, where small businesses shut their doors early to cut electricity bills, where working-class families stare at shut-off notices because the clean energy revolution came with a price tag they were never asked to approve. Germany has some of the highest energy prices in Europe. And no, not because of scarcity, but because of policy. A labyrinth of taxes, surcharges, and feel-good subsidies stacked on the backs of those who can't afford to play the game. The rich went green, the poor went dark. And yet the narrative still beams with pride. Progress, innovation, just transitions. But who's transitioning where? And at what cost? It's easy to celebrate climate milestones when you're not the one choosing between groceries and heating. This isn't just an energy crisis, it's a justice crisis. A system where the fragile pay first and the powerful never feel the consequences. So before you repost that infographic about Germany's green leadership, maybe ask how many lights were turned off to make it happen. Germany wants 80% renewable power by 2030. A bold, heroic vision. There's just one problem. They can't build the wires. Literally. Massive wind farms in the north? Check. Energy-hungry cities in the south? Check. But the high-voltage lines to connect them? Still tangled in paperwork, protests, and political paralysis. It's bureaucracy at its finest, and most tragic. Every turbine needs a permit. Every permit faces a lawsuit. Every lawsuit delays the grid. Meanwhile, local protests scream, "Not in my backyard," and environmental groups block solar fields in the name of protecting nature. You can't make this up. Germany is sprinting toward green goals with its shoelaces tied together. And every year, the gap between ambition and reality widens. Because in a country where it takes 5 years to approve a transmission line, but only 5 minutes to announce a new climate target, guess what comes faster? Not the power. And while leaders boast about timelines and targets, the grid continues to wobble, unprepared, underbuilt, overregulated. This isn't a lack of technology. It's a lack of coordination, of courage, of clarity. So when the next blackout hits, just remember, it wasn't the wind that failed. It was the system wrapped around. But in the factories, they're flickering out. Chemical plants, steel mills, auto parts manufacturers. The backbone of Germany's industrial might is packing up and leaving. Not for better talent, not for looser regulations, but for one simple reason: energy. Too expensive, too unstable, too unpredictable. What once made Germany a global manufacturing powerhouse, precision, reliability, efficiency, is now being choked by energy policies that punish productivity. And companies are done waiting. They're heading to the US, to Asia, to wherever the lights are cheaper and don't cut out mid-shift. This isn't a distant threat. It's happening now. Entire supply chains unraveling. Decades of engineering excellence being outsourced. And with every factory that shutters, the middle class erodes a little more. Germany didn't just gamble its energy future, it put its economy on the table too. And for what? Headlines? Awards? A moral high ground that's slowly sinking into brown coal dust? The Green Revolution was supposed to fuel the next era of growth. Instead, it's driving an industrial exodus. So here's the question no one wants to ask. What do you do when your principles cost you everything you built? Germany's energy crisis isn't staying in Germany. It's bleeding across borders, spiking electricity prices in the Netherlands, straining French nuclear exports, and leaving Poland fuming as coal demand surges again. The EU's so-called engine of progress has turned into a drag force, one blackout away from pulling the whole system down with it. Because Europe's grid is connected. When Germany panics, others pay. Interconnectivity was supposed to bring stability. Instead, it's become a lifeline, stretched thin by one country's refusal to balance ideology with reality. And now neighbors are watching with a mix of frustration and thinly veiled mockery. France, still running its nuclear empire, rolls its eyes as Germany buys back the power it once called dangerous. Poland ramps up coal, unapologetically. The Netherlands? Stuck trying to patch the holes in a leaky energy union. What was once the leader is now the liability. Germany promised a model for the future. What it delivered was a warning for the present. And as energy politics fracture the EU's unity, one question lingers. How many more countries have to pay for one nation's idealism before someone finally calls it what it is? A crisis by design? Germany was supposed to show us the way. The rich, efficient nation with the moral compass. The one that could prove green transitions weren't just possible, they were profitable, painless, inevitable. Leaders lined up to copy the model. The US took notes. The UK followed suit. Everyone wanted to be next. And now, quiet retreats, policy U-turns, temporary fossil rollbacks that look increasingly permanent. Because Germany didn't become the climate hero, it became the warning label. A country that moved fast, spent big, and still ended up cold, broke, and burning coal. The global message no one wants to hear is this. If they couldn't do it, with all their money, tech, and political will, then maybe the blueprint was never real to begin with. Maybe it was a fantasy dressed as a framework, a PR campaign dressed as policy, a hope with no plan. And that's what stings. Not the failure, but the fact that so few are willing to admit it. So now the world stares at the smoke rising from Germany's chimneys, pretending it's not a signal flare, but it is. And if we're smart, we'll read it for what it is, before the next green miracle becomes the next global mess. So here we are. Germany, once the industrial titan, the energy role model, the climate leader, now standing in the shadow of its own ambition. Power bills breaking records, coal fires lighting the night, factories silent, families freezing, all in the name of a dream that was never properly built. They didn't vote for this. No one did. Not the workers watching their jobs vanish overseas. Not the pensioners choosing between food and heat. Not the citizens told this was a transition when it's starting to feel more like a collapse. €500 billion. A decade of declarations. And now, more emissions, not less. More dependence, not freedom. More confusion, not clarity. This isn't just Germany's story. It's a mirror held up to the world, to every nation, rushing into energy revolutions armed with slogans. With all its discipline, wealth, and intention, couldn't pull this off without unraveling its economy, its credibility, and its power grid, then who can? Who will? And at what cost? This wasn't the future anyone voted for, but it might be the one we're all headed toward, unless we stop pretending and start asking better questions.